Everyone, welcome back to the Pro MMA Betting Podcast. Apologies for missing the last couple of shows. Some outside factors came up, couldn't commit to doing the show, but we're back this week. I'm going to break down the Reyes versus Jiří card. As always, we'll work from the bottom of the card, and it's always from a betting perspective, a bit different to most other podcasts out there. I'm not just going to pick who I think wins. We're going to look at the value, see if we feel there's any value on the betting line. If not, maybe there's a prop with some value. So it's orientated towards the better and where the value may lay. Just a reminder, I do offer a premium service, memberships for pre-bets and a live betting service. We run the live betting service off a private Discord channel. All of our bets are tracked. I had to take the links to the trackers off of here. I used to have them linked below the video, but YouTube said I was violating some terms or something. So the only way you can see them now, if you go to the website prommabetting.com, if you go to premium bets, you'll see 3 images. One is the betmma.tips image. You click on that, takes you to the betmma.tips page, and there are 2 other images there as well, there's 2 trackers. There's one that tracks the live betting tips, and there's another one that tracks any non-UFC plays or non-MMA plays, such as boxing plays, or perhaps if I do a double maybe between UFC and boxing, I can't track them at betmma.tips, so I put them on the separate tracker. So everything is tracked across the 3 trackers. Live betting is on a private Discord channel. The channel was suspended between fights, so no one else can contribute. You can only see our tips. I post bet tips and stakes on the Twitter page, which is at Pro MMA Betting. So give us a follow on Twitter. And everything is transparent and clear for everyone to see. Like I say as well, I like to prove that I'm betting what I'm tipping. That's why I like to provide the bet slips. And I also have no qualms about showing the staking. I don't understand why people, especially other tipsters, cover up the stake amount. I like to show that I've built a healthy bankroll and that I'm betting sizable amounts. In proportion to my bankroll, you should always use 1% of your bankroll as one unit. But I like to show that I've built a sizable bankroll and that I therefore am betting sizable amounts of money. And it goes to show people what you can achieve if you use a strict, consistent approach to MMA betting and applying certain rules and procedures. I threw something up yesterday on Twitter, just some guidelines for MMA betting, things to follow. Not strict rules set in stone, but general rule of thumb. So again, follow the Twitter page for advice on betting, particularly MMA, and hopefully you can pick up some good habits along the way and stop just reaching for action if your aim is to build a sizable bankroll and use MMA betting as a additional income stream for you. This week for members, we've got live betting on Friday night. We've got boxing. We've got Sonny Edwards fighting for a world title. Saturday night we've also got boxing. We've got Derek Chisora, Joseph Parker fight. So there'll be live betting for both events, and then after the Parker-Chisora fight, the UFC will follow straight after. So busy weekend for members. We've got a bet on PFL as well, which happens tonight. It looks like I'm going to have a tip for the UFC as well. Just working out sizing on that, so that's going to be going out to members as well. So if you want to sign up to the service, the website is prommabetting.com, or feel free to ask me any questions on Twitter. My DMs are open at prommabetting. As I say, everything is tracked, all bets are tracked, all the trackers are on the website. So go to the website, look for the image for betmma.tips, and the 2 other images next to it takes you directly to the trackers. Everything 100% transparent, guys. But we're going to jump into the card now. As I said, we'll work from the bottom and work our way up. So we're back in the small cage this week, back at the Apex. So first fight is Andreas Michailidis taking on KB Bula. It's a tough fight in my opinion from a betting perspective. It's a low-level UFC fight. Neither of these guys are UFC quality, if truth be told. KB Bula is coming off a demolition loss to Tom Breese, got basically knocked out with a jab. Not a great look. And Andreas, bit of a controversial fight. He took some elbows to the elbows, but they were to the back of the head. And it got stopped, but he's probably a little bit unlucky. Maybe it should have been a no contest. He's moving down to 185 now. He has fought at 185 in his career, but he took the UFC fight at 205. His line is about minus 250, which it's just too wide. I can't be betting Andreas Michailidis at minus 250, and I'll tell you why. Firstly, he's not UFC quality. Secondly, you look at his record. If the guy doesn't win in round one, generally he doesn't win. He's won one decision in his whole career against Ion Pascu, which is a fight I have watched in the past. I'm pretty sure Michailidis was slowing in that fight, but done enough to get the decision. But that fight aside, pretty much all of his wins are round one. And when you look at his losses, he's been stopped in every loss. 4 losses, all KO losses. And 3 of them are 2 of them are in round 2, 1 of them is in round 3. So the pattern that I'm talking about in terms of him slowing down, it kind of is played out in his results as well. KB Buller, there's not a great deal of tape on him. I did watch the Matt Dwyer fight when he was scheduled to fight Tom Breese. It went 5 rounds, so at least he can win a long fight. I can't remember it too well, but because I've not gone back and rewatched it here because I knew I wouldn't be betting this fight. But it wasn't a great look. I remember I can't remember if he got hurt a few times or was it Dwyer that got hurt. I really can't remember. But I remember he didn't look great. So, like I say, from a betting perspective, it's just a pass. I think even the over-under at 1.5, I just think it's a tough one to get a read on. It wouldn't surprise me if Michailidis puts him away in the first round. But I think if it does leave round 1, it's going to perhaps start to favour Buller. So, perhaps if you're a live bettor, and you have live betting for this fight, it's the first fight, so we don't always get lines. But if you do, perhaps have a look and see what the line is after round 1. And there might be some value on Buller then. But, it's just a complete pass fight for me. In terms of a prediction, I've got no clue, honestly. But I'm going to pick Buller just based on, I think the line's too wide. And if it does go past round 1, it could get interesting. But, having said that, wouldn't be shocked if Andreas comes out and puts him away in round 1. What is the round 1 prop? Let's have a quick look. I'm not betting it myself, but I know there's guys out there that like to bet every fight, so that might be the play on this particular fight because you can't be laying minus 250. Round 1, but you've got to remember as well, Michailidis isn't Tom. I know Tom Breese has got his faults, but he's a very good striker, and Michailidis isn't Tom Breese. So just because Tom Breese done it in round 1 doesn't mean Michailidis is. But Michailidis wins; they tend to be early. Let's have a look. Michailidis, round 1. Trying to find it. Michailidis plus 200. That's not great, really. I'd pass it personally on that fight. But I'm going to go with Buller just because of the odds. I think the odds are wide, but there's no chance I am putting any money on that fight. Next fight on the card, Luke Sanders, Felipe Colares. Regular listeners will know I don't bet flakes. I did apply a strategy of only betting flakes when they were dogs, but it still backfired on me. And Luke Sanders is a case in point, funnily enough. I can't remember if he was a slight dog last time or whether he was a slight favourite. I think he was a slight dog. I also bet Michael Johnson when he was a slight dog to the Brazilian whose name's escaping me. And that didn't work out either. So now I just don't bet them. It's dog or pass. So I'm going to pick Felipe Colares here. On paper, it's a great fight for Luke Sanders. It should light him up on the feet. Colares has got no striking. It's probably going to be tough for him to get Sanders down. But I just think Sanders, if he doesn't put him away early, he's gonna. If you look at his record, the amount of fights he's thrown away, he's bordering on Michael Johnson level. It's just he might be even worse. Like I said, I gave him the benefit of the doubt last fight and bet him. I'm hoping I bet him as an underdog. I just can't remember. Pretty sure he was an underdog. Maybe he wasn't. He was. I can't remember. But it was just a bad bet. Just trusting the guy. But I mean, he was dominating the fight, and I was getting nervous because he was engaging in the brawl when he didn't need to. And gets clipped and gets choked out. Manny Yaya just gets tapped out to a heel hook. Andrei Sukhantov is winning, gets knocked out. Alcantara, I mean, that's one of the biggest flake jobs you'll ever see. He didn't deal with Patrick Williams that convincingly, and I mean, even shot Henan Barral he was giving him all sorts of problems until he knocked him out. And I bet Sanders there as well. I remember being very nervous after round 1. So there's no way you can touch Sanders, guy, as a favourite. I think he's up minus 140. Colares isn't great, but he is tough. He's not been stopped. You watch that fight with Montel, and he takes a hell of a beating. And I can just see that happening here. He takes a beating, and then, I don't know, he gets on Sanders' back somehow, and Sanders just flakes out. So I'm going with Colares here to win, but plus 120, and for how limited he is, it's not overly appealing as a bet, I've got to be honest. I mean, he did take that beating off Montel, but Sanders can crack, so perhaps if you want to really bet the fight, maybe look at the under. The under's at plus money at 2.5. I could definitely see Colares putting Sanders away. Sanders, he loves quitting, and Sanders, he is a finisher. He does finish fights when he wins generally. So, but Colares has shown he is extra tough. So for me, it's just a pass fight in general. But I would definitely, if I was forced to bet, I'd definitely bet Colares there, and I'm picking Colares. Next fight is Loma Lukebumi taking on Sam Hughes. Regular listeners know my general rule of thumb is not to bet favourites at low level women's MMA. Loma is like minus 400. It's just completely unbettable. On paper, it's a very good fight for LO. Sam Hughes isn't known for her grappling. She's a fellow striker. And she's just a handful on the feet. And we saw Sam just completely overwhelmed by Tisha Torres. So I'm not surprised Loma's been bet up. She's probably in everyone's parlays, etc. But you can't pay that juice. I think if you're looking for some value on the fight, maybe look at Loma decision. Last time I looked, it was about minus 135. Let's just see if it's changed. Still holding there, minus 130, minus 135. I personally think that's the play. It's women's MMA. She is going to need a KO to get the stoppage here, and it's very rare that they happen. And Loma, she's very skilled, but she's not a massive power puncher. I think the danger might be more that she cuts her with an elbow or something from the tie clinch, which she loves working from, but highly likely it goes to the scorecard. So I think if you want to have a bet there, I think Loma decision is where the value probably lies. Next fight on the card, we have Kai Kamaka taking on TJ Brown. Take this a little while ago, so memory's a little bit foggy, but I came away definitely not wanting to bet Kai. I was a little bit worried about his takedown defence. Taken down a lot by Pierce, and TJ Brown will try and wrestle here. And he did tend to slow down, but I think Kai has had both of his UFC fights on short notice, so it's always hard to gauge someone when they're coming in on short notice, but I'm sure both fights he had in the UFC were, but he did slow down in both, so that's a concern as well. TJ Brown, on the other hand, I know he's done some of his camp with James Krause, who's getting a lot of credit at the moment. He seems to really emphasise fight IQ. All the fight IQ in the world. It can't help your chin though, and TJ Brown's chin is a little bit of a concern here. But I'd imagine Kai is going to try and keep this fight standing. We have seen him mixing the wrestling in the UFC, but here I think it's going to be keep the fight standing and try and beat TJ Brown up on the feet and maybe find that chin of his. TJ Brown's, I mean, he's not looked great in the UFC. I mean, he was winning that fight against Jordan Griffin and then he got choked from side control. Very rare to see that from the bottom. And then he just couldn't get Danny Chavez down to the floor. Just got beat up on the feet, basically. Had his calf eaten up. So there's definitely concerns here with TJ as well. The chin is one area of concern. I'm just seeing how many times he's lost by KO 3 times. But I'm sure I've watched fights where he's been dropped in the past as well, survived. Maybe they did a lockout fight. I can't remember. It's been a long time since I watched that, but there's definitely a chin concern with him. Kai is the sharper boxer, but Kai's never knocked anyone out, which is pretty surprising because you watch, especially his UFC debut against Tony Kelly, he looked real sharp on the feet there. He beat Michael Stack, who's not a bad fighter, before he made his UFC debut. So I do like Kai. His boxing he's put together well. His offensive wrestling's decent. It's just the slowing down, and I just didn't like that takedown defense against Pearce. Pearce, I think, went like 5 of 7 takedowns. So I'm gonna go with Kai here. I'm gonna pick Kai to use his boxing. I'm going to assume his cardio is going to hold up better now that he's had a full camp, and I think he will earn a hard-fought decision here. But there's definitely a path here for TJ if you can get the takedowns, get on top of Kai. Kai's going to be most dangerous in round 1, so he's got to protect that chin. We're in the small cage. But if he can try and wear on Kai, there's definitely a path for him. But I'm gonna go with Kai here to get a hard-fought decision victory. But in terms of a bet, tough fight for me to bet. I have my concerns with Kai, especially the cardio, especially the takedown defense, stuff that's hard to really get a proper gauge on from tape, especially where he's not had the full camp in the UFC. So I'll lean Kai here, but they could go either way. It's a close fight, and from a betting perspective, the line's sitting at minus 160, I think Kai is. Let me just see if it's changed at all. He's been bet down a little bit. Money's coming in on TJ. Kai's like minus 150 now, so I'll pick Kai, but it's definitely not a confident pick. Next, we've got Gabriel Benitez taking on Jonathan Pearce. So, similar dynamic here, really. Gabriel's going to want to keep the fight standing. Pearce is going to want to get him down. Pearce is very big featherweight. Gabriel, very sharp striking. Fights out that southpaw stance. Really quick. He's got some evil kicks. One of the best kickers in the game. Jonathan Pearce showed his toughness last fight against Kai Kamaka, who we just spoke about, funnily enough. Kai was doing well on the feet, but Pearce is so big, he keeps coming forward. He's a proper savage. I mean, he had that loss to Joe Lozon, which obviously isn't a great look. Joe's at the end of his career, but I don't really want to read too much into that. He ended up in a very awkward position on the bottom where his arm was trapped and he just got pounded out. But I don't want to he did get rocked on the feet as well. To be fair, Joe did definitely rattle him, but I don't want to kind of look too much into that Lozon fight. If you look at his Contender Series fight and the fight with Kai, both kind of similar. He just keeps coming. He gets, he's one of these gritty types they're always horrible to bet against, because if you don't get rid of them, they're just there. They're in your face. They've got cardio for days. They keep coming, and they're awkward to deal with. But this is a step up for Pearce. Gabriel Benitez is very, very good striker. You have to go back a long time to see Benitez's takedown defence tested. You've got to go back to like the Barzola and Jason Knight fights. And Barzola's got very good takedowns with very poor top control and took Benitez down at will, but was unable to keep him on the mat. Now, he did continually get up versus Barzola, and the one time Knight got him down, it was against the fence, kept his back to the fence and used a whizzer, got back to his feet. Against Barzola, he was giving his back up a lot, so that's something he's going to have to be careful of. But on the feet, it's definitely Benitez's fight. He's a handful on the feet, and he's not going to gas. He's not a gasser, Benitez, so he's not going to slow down, I don't think, even if Pearce keeps coming at him for 3 rounds. I don't see Benitez slowing down. His cardio's always seemed fine. So I don't think there's any value on the money line, minus 200. I can't really get behind that because his takedown, he can be taken down. But we're going back years, you know, his takedown defense now could have improved tenfold. We just don't know. It's literally been years since we've seen his takedown defense tested. And Barzola does have very good takedowns. He just doesn't have good top control. So there is a bit of an unknown here as to how Benitez's takedown defense is going to look, because we just haven't seen it tested. But Pearce is going to have to get the fight to the floor. I'd be very, very surprised if he can win a striking battle against Benitez. So I'm going to go with Benitez. Pearce, he is one of them gritty types, but he did lose the Lozon fight, and the 2 wins are against Kai and Jacob Rosales. You know, this is a step up against Gabriel Benitez. Is Pearce going to be able to take that step up? I don't know. But like I keep saying, he's one of these gritty fighters, and they're rough to bet against. So I'm not betting against him here, but I'm going with experience. I'm going with the striking acumen of Gabriel Benitez, and if he does get taken down, I'm going to side with him being able to work his way back to his feet. And the thing is as well, guys, the judging has changed a lot over the last year or so. If you get a takedown, even if you've got the takedown for 3 minutes, if you don't do a lot with it and the guy gets back to his feet and unleashes some good strikes on the feet, the judges are generally going with the person that's inflicting the damage, even if it's outweighed by minutes of ground control. So I think Pearce will have to literally hold Benitez down for very long stretches, and Benitez will fight to get back to his feet if he gets his back taken. But I don't know if Pearce is really that type of fighter where he's going to sink his hooks in and control you with back control. I'm not sure that's his kind of style. So I'll go with Benitez. The over set at 1.5. I personally think that's the best play on this fight. I'd be very surprised if Pearce finished in under 1.5. I think if Pearce was to get a finish, it would be in the latter part of the fight. So I feel like you're kind of betting on not Benitez inside the first 7.5 minutes. And I mean, he is dangerous, Benitez, on the feet, but he's not known for his he's like one punch knockout power. I know he got that nice knee on James, but that was quite low percentage. Not often you see that type of finish, and he did drop Yusuf, but I do have question marks about Yusuf's chin. So I'm not saying he hasn't got power. He's obviously a very dangerous striker. He throws very heavy kicks. But I think I lean the over here. If I was going to look at betting this fight, it would be the over 1.5 for me personally. If it's still sitting at around minus 150, I don't know if it's changed. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, it's still at about around the minus 150 range. So that would probably be the bet for me. But if Benitez keeps the fight standing for that 7.5 minutes, it's probably going to be quite sweaty at the same time, because he is he's a heavy kicker, and his hands aren't bad either. So but if I'm looking at a bet for the sake of a bet, that's probably the way I would be looking on that particular fight. Last fight before the main card, we got Randa Marcos taking on, I think, Luana Pinheiro. So with Randa, it's a case of where is she at the moment? She's 35 years of age now. She's got a 10-10 record. I mean, she's always been kind of around that mark. It doesn't really reflect how good of a fighter she is or how good of a fighter she was. She's always been match tough, Randa. She's not really had any gimmies. I mean, if you look at her even on the Ultimate Fighter, you look back, she fought Tisha Torres, Felice Herrig, and Rose Namajunas, and then UFC run. Let me just scan it. I'm just going to look to tell you who the worst name is on her record. I mean, she's never fought Juliana Lima, and Lima's not terrible. Jocelyn Jones-Lybarger, maybe the worst opponent she's fought, and she isn't a bum per se. She's always been match tough, Randa. The question with Randa is where she's at. She's 35 years of age now. She is coming off 3 straight losses. She's lost 4 of her last 5 against, we're talking Claudia Gadelha, Amanda Ribas, Mackenzie Dern, Kaneko Murata. These aren't bad girls she's losing to. But, the age, the loss, you just start to question where she's at. Luana is making her UFC debut here. We saw her on the Contender Series, where she got a good win, or an impressive finish. But it's hard to get a proper read on Luana because this is a big step up against Randa Marcos. She's been doing what you'd like a contender to be doing. She's been stopping girls, which you don't often see in women's MMA. A lot of the fights go to decision, but she's finished a lot of her fights. Her record's now 8-1, and she's only had one fight go to a decision that she's won. So she's been finishing girls, albeit they are a level below the likes of Randa Marcos. But it's encouraging to see that she's been finishing. I think she's got a judo background, but it's her striking that she's really been working on. She's minus 160 here. Now, regular listeners will know my general rule of thumb is in lower level women's MMA, take the dog. Now, minus 160, implied probability is about 60%. So the odds are saying if they fight 10 times, Luana wins 6. And that could be right. It's hard to gauge Luana because, she's, as I keep saying, she's done what you'd like her to do against lower level competition. She's been putting them away. Her last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Her last 7 wins are in round 1. But this begs the question: is how's she going to look past round 2? Last time she left round 1, she lost a split decision. So as good as all these round 1 wins are, it's just hard to get a gauge on someone. How is she going to look when she's taken into deep waters? How is her cardio going to look in the second and third round of a high-paced fight? So I can't bet Randa. I'm not parting with any money here, but in terms of a pick and where I feel the value lies, I'm going to pick Randa. Now, Luana could come out and just dominate her, but it's a step up in competition. If she comes out and puts Randa away in round 1, then, round of applause. Very impressive because Randa's never been KO'd. She's been subbed a few times. I think 3 times if you include the Ultimate Fighter. But Luana tends to like to strike. So, I'd be very surprised if she's able to put Randa away. Randa's fought the best of the best as well. As I said at the start, you look at her record, but she's never really had any gimme fight. She's always fought really good girls, always been match tough. Whereas obviously someone like Luana, she's never been match tough. She hasn't experienced that yet. So she's probably going to get that here. So it's just hard, it's whether you buy into the hype or not. There is the other question with Randa is she at the 1 foot out the door kind of stage? Because if she loses here, she's probably going to get cut, or she will get cut. She'll have a losing record. She would have lost 4 in a row. 5 of her last 6, she's going to get cut. So, there's always the question: is she just turn up for the paycheck here? But as a bettor, I don't know that. I can't cap that. Possible to cap. I've got to go with what I know of their skills, and I'm gonna pick Randa here to pull off the upset win as the underdog against the 60% implied Pinheiro, but it's unbettable in my opinion. It's just an unbettable fight. If you love betting every fight, and that was my style, which it isn't. I only bet where I'm confident I've got an edge, and I'm not confident here because Pinheiro could be the goods. Who knows? But what does stoke my interest? The over is set at minus 200, which I think is quite interesting. Randa could finish. You never know. If she gets Pinheiro down, who knows? She could be awful off her back. But, Luana's going to knock out Randa Marcos. It seems unlikely. I know she's got these KO wins and submission wins. And maybe submission is in play, perhaps. Randa has been submitted a couple of times. But I'd be very surprised if she gets stopped. And I think, there's a bit of an overreaction there from the bookies. Just looking at Luana's round 1 finishes, I think it should be higher. It's women's MMA, and it's a big step up for Luana. So the over 2.5 is of interest to me. But I'm going to pick Randa to snatch a late career victory against the newcomer, just purely because it's lower level women's MMA pretty much, and it's a step up for Luana. So let's see what happens. I could be wrong. Luana could be the goods, but the over definitely interests me. I'd see the fight go into a decision more often than if you've got minus 200. It's implying that the fight's going to go over 66% of the time. I think that's too low. I think you've got to be looking at least, it's women's MMA, it's random markers. I think you've got to be looking at more like 75, 80%. So I think there's some value on the over there. So let's jump into the main card. First fight on the main card, we've got another low-level women's MMA fight. What I would class as low-level women's MMA. Poliana Botelho taking on Luana Carolina. Look, I know Luana Carolina looks a bit like a newborn giraffe. She's a bit all over the place. But I think the odds here are too wide. Last time I looked, Botelho was up at like minus 260. Now, there is a possible grappling path for her here. We saw her use that against Lauren Muller. And I wouldn't be surprised if she uses it here as well against Carolina. She can probably get takedowns, and it would be the path of least resistance for her to look for the takedowns here. But it's women's MMA. Are they going to do what they should do? It's sketch. If it's on the feet, I think it's a 50-50 fight. I know Luana's a bit all over the place. Her chin's up in the air, but she can throw, she can strike. Botelho's very kick heavy on the feet. I think on the feet it's more like a 50-50 fight. So I do cap Botelho as a slight favourite here, but that's pretty much based on her using a takedown game, which I definitely don't trust her to use. But minus 260. You're talking like 72% implied probability. It's just too high for me. It's just too high. Maybe if it was more like the Pinheiro line, 60% minus 150, I could agree with that, I think. But I think there's a little bit of value on Carolina. But it's just one of them ugly fights where you need some balls to bet it, because I'm not confident we've definitely got an edge, because she might get taken down. If Botelho fights smart, that's what she'll do. But if it stays on the feet, I think it's a 50-50. So for me personally, I'm going to go with the dog again on the women's MMA. I'm going to go with Carolina. But Botelho could make this look fairly straightforward, I feel, if she does go for the takedowns. But if she doesn't and we end up with a stand-up fight, I think it's 50-50, and it's women's MMA. I don't trust their fight IQ, so I would not be surprised at all if she comes out and strikes. And she does like to strike at the end of the day, but she did mix in the takedowns with Lauren Muller, so it is in her back pocket. So, but still, regardless, with the odds, if Botelho was minus 150 here, I'd probably pick her, but nah, I'm not picking her as a minus 260 favourite. I mean, if you're betting that, you're playing with fire, people. That's not a good bet. Low-level women's MMA, you can't be betting minus 260s. Take it from me. You might win this one, but long-term, keep a track of your lower-level women's MMA bets when you're betting minus 260s. You're not going to win long-term. So I'm going to go with Carolina. And we're all about winning long-term, guys. I don't bet as a hobby. It's my job at the end of the day. If you're just throwing a few pennies at the wall, don't really care, then fair play. But if you want to build like a side income, build a bankroll, you need to be careful with betting on things like that. They're just tough to win long term. And whereas last fight where I was talking about the Marcos over at 2.5, minus 200, long term, you're going to win money long term, because women's MMA fights, they go over. They generally go to a decision. So next we got Merab Dvalishvili taking on Cody Stamann. Line's a bit wide for me. Again, line's a bit wide, but the difficulty I have betting Merab is he just doesn't finish fights. This is going to go to a decision. It's highly likely going to go to a decision. So when you're paying like minus 250 and you're betting on someone to win a decision, it's just not a great bet. If I'm paying the juice, I want to at least be betting on someone who I feel can at least win by KO and decision, or submission and decision, or even better, KO, submission and decision. But if you're betting Merab at minus 250, you're just banking on a decision. 9 times out of 10, it's highly likely if he wins, it's going to be a decision here. And a lot can go wrong in that 15 minutes. We all know how unpredictable this sport is. So if you keep betting someone at minus 250 who invariably is going to go to a decision and can't finish, he's going to come unstuck eventually. Is Cody Stamann the guy to do it? Perhaps not. I don't like that Cody dropped the third round against Perez and Kelleher just makes me feel that someone like Merab, who brings a very high pace, Merab's likely to win round 3. So then, for Cody to get the win, because Cody's not a finisher either. So this is the other problem. But if you're betting Cody, at least you're getting dog money on him. But, with Merab, you're talking 72% implied probability. If they fight 10 times, you're basically betting on Merab winning a decision over 7 out of 10 times. And Cody's got a great double leg, real good shot. I don't think he'll be able to hold Merab down. I think Merab will scramble back up. And, I don't think Merab's going to be able to hold Cody down. Merab's always had difficulty holding guys down. Cody's very athletic. He's a strong guy. So I can see this plan out on the feet in stretches. Merab's striking is improving. He's going to have range over Cody. But honestly, it's going to a decision, highly likely. And I can see it being a competitive fight. I just don't see any value on Merab at minus 250. And as I've already said, highly unlikely he finishes. It's highly likely you're betting on decision. The decision line sitting at minus 150. I wouldn't go big here anyway because I'm just not massively confident on Merab here. But for me, the decision line is the bet as opposed to the minus 260 or to minus 250, whatever he's sitting at. The minus 150 on the decision is probably going to cash. Like I said, dropping the round 3 in a couple of fights I didn't love from Cody. And this is going to be a high-paced fight. You know what Merab brings to the table. He's going to bring pace and pressure. But I'm kind of tempted to pick Cody, to be honest. What's Cody's decision line at? It's probably at like plus 300. I don't think that's a bad bet, to be completely honest. Let's have a quick look. Cody by decision. No, it's higher. You can get plus 400 on it. Wow. Whew. That's not bad. Look, I always say, if you're really confident and you think Cody can win this fight, or you're sure there's definite value there, you've got to take the money line and put, I don't know, 0.2 of what you want to put on the money line on the decision, because you'd hate yourself if it's MMA, fluky stuff happens at the end of the day. If Cody knocked him out, you'd hate yourself for betting decision when you was confident that Cody could win this fight. So always be careful with that. If it's something you're a little bit on the fence about, and I think the decision is the way to go. Plus 400, that's pretty generous. That's not a bad line at all. And as I say at the start of the show, every time, this is a betting podcast. I'm not just going to pick who I feel wins. If you gave me Merab at minus 150, like I said with the Botelho fight, I'd probably pick Merab because I just wouldn't really be seeing the value in Cody. But he's sitting at plus 210. I'm seeing plus 215. And then the decision sitting at plus 400. You're telling me he only wins a decision 20% of the time? Now, look, if they fought 10 times, it wouldn't go to a decision every single time. But you're telling me out of those 10 times, he's only going to win a decision twice. That's off, man. That's off. There's value there on that decision line for him. Even on the money line's 32% roughly. So you're saying, 3 times out of 10 he wins the fight, basically, by whatever means. I think it's going to be a competitive fight. I think that's too wide. I'm going to pick Cody here. I think that's too wide, guys. I'm surprised that decision line's so wide for Cody. I can see the case for Merab. I can, believe me. Like I said, if he was minus 150, I'd pick him here. But I just think there's a bit of value on Cody. I think it's going to be a close competitive fight. It's going to go to a decision. I'm going Cody, and I think you can argue Cody's the best opponent that Merab's fought in the UFC. I know he's fought Ricky Simone, but I'd say Cody's probably the best opponent he's faced. So I'm picking Cody. I'm going dog heavy on this card, guys. I'm not confident, but I think I've got to take something on that decision line plus 400. That's just too wide to me. It's the first time I've actually noticed that. So I'm picking Cody here for the upset. Sean Strickland, Krzysztof, Jotko next. So Strickland, he's come back from his motorcycle accident. He's at middleweight now. He's looked good. I mean, if we're honest, he's had two good stylistic fights. He's had two guys that don't mind getting hit in Jack Marshman and Brendan Allen, and he's dealt with them both impressively. A bit of a different stylistic matchup here. Jotko isn't someone that's going to come and lead with his head and just be there to be hit. We know Jotko's been knocked out a few times. Chin's been a bit of a concern. He's kind of started to change his style up now. He'll try and fight on the outside, and he'll come in and try and clinch up and hit takedowns. So he's going to try and do that here against Strickland. Strickland's going to try and get in his face. Small cage benefits Strickland. He's sitting at about another minus 250. I don't like betting minus 250s in MMA. You can probably hear, unless I'm super duper confident. I'm not going to pick the dog here. I'm going to go with Strickland. I don't really think there's, the line feels about right. Maybe even a little bit wide, perhaps. But Strickland, he's going to like the small cage. He's going to get in Jotko's face. And when what I just said as well about betting minus 250s when they're going to win by decision. I mean, realistically, Strickland can win by KO here. I mean, it probably goes to a decision, but the KO's in play here. So if you are betting on Strickland, at least there is the prospect. It's unlikely he submits him, but the prospect of a KO is live. So KO's live and decision's live. So you're not kind of relying on most likely one outcome. Jotko's going to have to stay long, try and peck away at him using his length from the outside, and then he's going to look to probably come under Strickland, try and hit takedowns. And Strickland used to fight at welterweight, but he looks like one of those guys that he looks like a middleweight now. I don't think size is going to be an issue. Strickland used to train at Team Quest, so I'm sure he's very familiar with being in the clinch. He does a lot of his training there I think he's in California now. He seems to mix up where he trains. I know he does some work at King's. But then I saw he was in Vegas. I'm not sure where he trains, because there's training pictures of him in King's, and then there's stuff with him. I think it was at Extreme Couture. So I'm not sure, but you've got to think that Jotko's going to struggle for the takedowns. Sean will probably be able to get back to his feet, even if he does get taken down. So I have to go with Sean here. I don't love the money line, but I just think he's going to make this a tough fight for Jotko. Jotko, his last fight against Anders is quite slow and lumbering. Before that, he fought Barrio, very close fight, and Barrio's again quite lumbering. He's fought two quite slow guys in Barrio and Anders. Strickland's a bit quicker than them. An ex-welterweight. It's not going to be as slow. So I just think it's a tough fight. So I'll go with Strickland here. Cuțelaba, Jacoby next. This is a good fight. I like this. Cuțelaba, he's kind of built a pattern in terms of what happens in his fights now. If he doesn't get you out of there in the first round, he kind of tends to unravel. Now, he got the decision win over Jonathan Wilson early in his UFC career, but Jonathan Wilson wasn't UFC quality. Ian perhaps should have been putting him away, but Ian was pretty raw. He's improved somewhat, but I think he still trains in Moldova or wherever he's from, and I think it holds him back a bit. But I mean, you look at the pattern of his fights. He wins in round one or he loses, basically. Now, he's lost to good guys, Serkinov, Cannonier, Glover, Ankalaev twice. These aren't bums he's losing to. And he's got wins over Roundtree and Tigulov, Frankenstein, Wilson. So when he's stepped up, he's lost. When he's had a level below, he's won. Jacoby definitely doesn't fall into the Ankalaev and Glover section, but I'd say he's a step above Antigilovs, Frankensteins and Wilson. So he's kind of got a middle of the road opponent here. Jacoby's always been pretty durable. So I'm interested in what approach Cuțelaba takes, because when you look at his stats, he's only really used his wrestling in the fights versus Roundtree and I think it was the Serkinov fight. The Jared Cannonier fight. They're the only fights where he's really used his wrestling. Other fights he's just been content to kind of stand. So if he comes in here and is happy just to stand with Jacoby, I mean, obviously he's a big puncher. He could catch you, but I think I know Jacoby's the more skilled striker. He's also a bit of a menace with that calf kick, and I hate betting against calf kickers. So, you know, the last fight with Grishin, I remember I live betted Jacoby there, and I didn't think he was going to get the decision. But I mean, Grishin was huge. He just looks massive at light heavyweight. But it was still very close. You know, I'm not saying it was a bad decision, but I didn't think I was going to get a decision. But Cuțelaba is going to come out hot here. Jacoby's only been knocked out once in MMA. That was to King Mo years ago. He obviously went away. He was doing a lot of the Glory kickboxing and so forth. I think he got stopped in a couple of fights in Glory, but you know he's always shown to have a decent chin, and he's the better technical striker here. So this is going to be interesting. I think for Jacoby, mission A is to survive the first round. If you can get out of round one, I think the tables definitely turn. Like I said, Cuțelaba's only won the one fight in the UFC that's gone past round one. He's only won one decision in his career, and that was the Wilson fight. If he doesn't get you out of there in round one, things tend to go sideways for him. I mean, you look at his record. I'm just looking at even his regional fights, and they're all round one wins. Besides one fight, he's got a second round win, 29 seconds into round two. Everything else is round one. So it's definitely, if you don't want to bet the fight, live bet's definitely live here, because historically we know what happens after round one in Cuțelaba fights. And as I say, Jacoby's the better striker, but doesn't always matter in MMA with them 4-ounce gloves. If you get clipped, you get clipped. But I mean, Cuțelaba's coming off 2 KO losses. I know the first one was controversial, but last time he got put to sleep. So maybe here he'll come out and look to wrestle. Like I said, he's only wrestled against Roundtree, and that worked well for him. And he wrestled against Cannonier, which, I mean, ultimately it backfired because he ended up gassing out. So I'm just not sure how, honestly, he's a madman, Cuțelaba. I don't know how he approaches this fight, but there's value on Jacoby if he comes out to strike. And I think there's value anyway. There's no way I'm laying. Let me just look at the odds. I think last time I looked, he was like -160, Cuțelaba. -140. Hold on, let me just refresh that. I thought I saw the odds were a bit different. No, he's like -140. I'm still not laying -140 on Cuțelaba. There's no way I'm doing that here when he's his record says he's a round one merchant, and Jacoby's the kind of guy that, you know, if he survives round one, he'll come round and he'll turn the fight around. I think it's a great live bet fight. I mean, if you're obviously Cuțelaba round one is a play. If you like your props and whatnot. The line's probably rubbish though. Let me just have a look. Cuțelaba round one. +200 again. We looked at the other round one prop. It was +200. So I mean, +200. That's how he wins his fights. If you like betting your props, probably I don't really think there's any great value on that, but +200 for round one. And then if he gets out of round one, I think you've got to automatically live bet Jacoby, unless he takes a horrendous beatdown in round one. I think it's an auto Jacoby bet, to be honest with you. And I don't think you can go big on Jacoby pre-fight, but it's, you know, you never know. He might win round one. That's why I hate when people say, "Oh, just wait for live bet." Not, you know, fights often don't play out how you feel, and if he ends up putting Cuțelaba away in round one or winning round one, then the opportunity of betting Jacoby at plus money's gone. So I personally think if you want to bet the fight, a little bet on Jacoby pre-fight, maybe Cuțelaba round one hedge. I don't like hedging. I've done it in the past and I've ended up getting double burned. I don't like doing it. It's just not my style. But I definitely think it's live for a live bet. But I'm going to pick Jacoby. I'm going to pick him to survive round one. I think it should be more like a pick 'em. I don't think there's a great value on Jacoby, but hence why I haven't bet it. I'm just not like, oh wow, the value's screaming at me. But I'm definitely going to be ready on live bet. So co-main event, we've got Swanson, Giga, Chikadze. Giga's been... He got bet down and now he's getting bet again. He's sitting at about -160, -170. So, I mean, Giga's quite late to MMA. He's like 32 years of age himself. Not been doing MMA too long. Been in the UFC a couple of years now. The UFC matched him pretty well to begin with, to be fair. He was given a fair few winnable fights. Erwin Rivera, I know he was a late replacement, Jamal Emmers, Brandon Davis. The Jamal Emmers fight was very close. He slowed down, he lost round 3, got outstruck in round 3 by Emmers, but he was slowing down. But kind of had a bit of a breakout performance against Omar Morales. Looked a lot better in that fight. Omar's a decent fighter. And he got another gimme last time out. I think that was another late notice opponent, or the fight was put together late notice just to fill out a card. Can't remember, but yeah, I mean, he's had a number of gimmies. Omar Morales was definitely the standout opponent he's faced in the UFC. We're saying that Jamal Emmers isn't a bad fighter, and that was, close fight. I do think Giga deserved that decision, but he did lose round 3 and got outstruck there. But Omar Morales, he looked good against. Cub Swanson is obviously, he's getting towards the end of his career. He's 37 years of age. He's been around a long time. He's had about 40 fights. He's had some wars in the UFC, Cub. He's coming off a couple of wins though. Kron Gracie, which was in hindsight, well, not even in hindsight, you knew if he couldn't get the fight to the floor that Cub was going to eat him standing. And then Daniel Pineda, who he had a rough start against, but Pineda gassed himself out and got finished for it. You can't be taking liberties like that against Cub. He's an experienced vet. So, look, on the feet, you have to give Giga the advantage. I was looking at Cub's stats, and the last time he's really used a takedown approach at all was back against Artem Lobov, talking 4 years ago now. But, he's been facing guys tough to take down. Frankie Edgar, you're not going to take down Brian Ortega. Morcano, you're not going to take down. Shane Burgess has solid takedown defence. He's obviously not going to take down Gracie. So, styles make fights at the end of the day. So, I've got to think there's going to be some element of Cub here that's going to be looking for the takedown. But, it's something he's never been known for. He is a striker. I know he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but most of his losses are by sub. I think he's only been KO'd once by Jose Aldo, and that was just got caught with a flying knee, right? Caught cold right at the start of the fight. So, realistically, it's going to be a stand-up fight, most likely anyway. So, I just find it a little bit of a funny fight to predict because it's a step up for Giga here. Cub, wily veteran. I don't think Giga's going to put him away. Like I said, it's looking like Giga's probably going to have to win a decision. His ground game is obviously a concern, Giga, but I'm just not used to seeing Cub go out, take people down, and dominate with the grappling. So I've just got a feeling. I think Cub will probably look for some takedowns. I remember he's quite good with hip throws and stuff, but I just don't. It's never been a successful method in MMA really with the hip throws and that. So I've got to think that the fight is probably going to play out on the feet. The slowing down in the Emmers fight is a concern because Giga does load up. He does throw everything into every shot, and someone like Cub. Veteran, he's been in there, seen it all. I'm going to go with Giga to win a decision here, but I'm not betting it. Something puts me off a bet. I just don't feel I've got a great read on the fight, to be honest. I just find this is a bit of a tough one to read, but I'm going to pick Giga. Think he'll win a decision, striking affair. Think he'll do enough on the feet to outwork Cub. Cub's he was outstruck by Edgar. Morcano dropped him with a jab, then finished him. Burgess, it was a very close fight, to be fair, with Burgess. But he has been losing to strikers. Last striker he beat was Artem Lobov, and he obviously had that complete war with Choi the fight before, and that must have taken something out of him, that fight. It was crazy, that fight. But I'll go with Giga, just being the fresher fighter, probably getting the fight that he wants on the feet. And winning I don't think he's going to run away with it, but I think he'll do enough. I think he'll just outwork Cub and maybe land the more eye-catching shots just to win a decision. But I honestly don't feel like I've got a great read on the fight. I'm just not sure about Giga still. Good win against Reyes, but I'm just not sure what his ceiling is. Main event: Dominick Reyes against Jiří Prochazka. Don't know how to say surname. Let's just stick with Jiří. That someone is highly likely going down in this fight. Jiří's a madman. He's just had the Tong Po haircut, coming off that win over Vulcan. got hurt a few times in that fight versus Volkan in the first round, but the guy just kept coming, and I mean the way he put Volkan away, pretty scary. Volkan's always shown to have a really solid chin and just completely shut his lights out. He's 27-3, 24 wins inside by KO, 2 subs. He's won 1 decision in all them fights, and his 3 losses are inside the distance. You know, he doesn't go to a decision, this guy. I like Dominick Reyes. Very good fight. You can argue he beat John Jones. Just slowed down in the fight, and that's the knock on Reyes. He does slow down in fights. You know, you even saw it against OSP, slowed down in that fight after a high volume round 1. You saw it against Volkan, slowed down in that fight. You saw it against John Jones as well, slowed down there. And against Jan, he just didn't show up. Very hesitant for him. I don't know if he was pacing himself. I know his father wasn't well and get some weird stuff going on, you know, in that sense. But he just didn't show up. It just wasn't the normal Reyes against Jan. I thought maybe he was pacing himself because it's another 5 rounder and he does slow down. But just, you know, and when he did put his foot down, finally he got countered and he got knocked out. So I just wonder where he is mentally coming into this fight, because Jiří's he's a scary guy. But he's there to be hit ultimately. His defense isn't great, so Reyes is going to have a chance to land some of his firepower on Jiří here. And you know, Jiří, I'm just looking at his record in terms of cardio. I mean, against King Mo in the rematch, he stopped him in the 3rd round. That was a couple of years ago, but I mean, generally speaking, he's not been, you know, the last time he went, besides the King Mo fight, the last time that he completed 2 rounds we're talking, you know, 4.5 years ago. Now you look at his record, it's all round 1 pretty. There's very few fights that go past round 1. He's got a draw there back in 2014 in a 3-round fight. Flying knee win in 2013 in round 3. But, you know, as much as there's cardio questions about Reyes, you've got to pose them with Jiří as well. If he's, you know, the fight with King Mo as well that he won in round 3 was a very slow-paced fight. But how's Reyes going to approach it? Is he going to come out high volume, or is he going to be concerned about his cardio? So I think with both, there's a cardio question mark. They've both got the power to end the fight. Who wins the fight? I don't know. It's a really tough fight to call. So I think it's like money was coming in on Jiří. Did go out to about minus 150 or so, I think, but it's come back in on Reyes. He's like minus 130-ish now. I think it's a bit of a coin flip fight, to be completely honest. I didn't like Reyes' approach against Jan, but I think if we get the normal Reyes here, I think it's a 50-50. So, you know, I just don't think there's any value on either guy, to be completely honest. Let me just look at I know the over's at 1.5. I don't love betting unders on 1.5, I've got to say. The under at 2.5 is minus 160. First time I've looked at that, that's not bad. I think that's the way I'd be going on this fight, to be honest. The under 2.5, minus 160. You know, you're getting minus 160. That's implying that the fight ends under 2.5 rounds. 6 times out of 10. Probably a bit of value there. I think you're probably looking more like maybe 7-8 times out of 10 that fight ends under 2.5 rounds. So I think, you know, if I'm betting that fight, that's probably the way I'm approaching it, is the under 2.5. In terms of who I'm picking to win, my gut's just saying Jiří's going to catch him, so I'll pick Jiří, but I've got no confidence in that. I think it's a coin flip. I think it's whoever lands the big shots first. Didn't like Dom's hesitancy last time, so, you know, maybe he comes out a bit hesitant again. But I don't think he's going to get the choice here to be hesitant, to be honest. I think Jiří's just going to be in his face because he doesn't use kicks, Jiří. He uses hands. He's happy to come inside. So Dom's going to have to be... He's going to be forced to fire back. If he doesn't fire back, he's going to get knocked out. So I'll go with Jiří. But, yeah, there's just a pick on for me. 50-50. Flip a coin. Under 2.5, I think, is a solid bet. So that wraps up the card, guys. Good luck with your bets. We'll be back next week for the next UFC card. Like I said, prommmabetting.com for the packages, live betting and pre-bets. All exclusive only to members. But as I say, good luck. Hope you all make some money. And we'll be back next week.